Hi, my name is Alexander Murphy. It has been quite a while since I last uploaded content, I think around half a year. I am sorry about this, especially because I had been talking about planning a special project in my last episode. In short, I had been setting the podcast aside initially to focus on my studies, which ended up becoming a break much longer than that which I planned. Additionally, over this summer, I've been working on a ton of different content, which is why I didn't restart and start uploading again as soon as the holidays started. But now I can say for sure that I am back and have a ton of new exciting interviews and other content lined up. So be sure to stick around and find out. This episode, I am joined by a Mr. Digger, who shares some of his experiences with dealing with gangs and in the 50s in London. And he also talks about the Brinks Mat robbery, a famous heist in the 80s where over £20 million worth of gold bars were stolen from the Heathrow International Trading Estate, which is equivalent to around £290 million today. His story is very interesting, offering a glimpse into a life the average civilian certainly would never have had the chance to see. Please enjoy Mr. Digger's story.
My life in the 50s was consisted of jazz clubs in the West End of London and around areas. Uh, do you want to know what was really going on in London at the time?
Yeah.
As the crime syndicates at the time was very big. There was a family called the Crays who had twins, Ronnie and Reggie Cray, who was in the protection business of the West End in certain places. I think they run a club in the West End called Esmeralda's Barn. It was there as one of their haunts. Other than that, they committed quite a few crimes with rival gangs. There was a rival gang from the Catford area called the Richardsons, who they had rival um, altercations with. Um, and sort of there were shootings and even murders had gone on with them. Uh, Music wise at the time was quite big with the Lyceum, Hammersmith Palais, Wimbledon Palais. Other than that, it was quite a big thing with the jazz era and all around the West End. Chelsea was quite a big part of it all because the starlets then from the cinemas and the show business was all quite big with them all. And they used to get involved with these criminal fraternities as well. So, this was what was going on in the 50s. One of the things there was a big corruption with police in the West End, the detectives, and what used to go for them was the media of a paper, which at the time was the Sunday News of the World, and that used to report quite a big lot of the crime in the West End of London, which was quite big. Um, I think one of the reporters there was called Duncan Edwards, who was worked for him for quite a long time. But they exposed quite a lot of the crime wave in the London area at the time with the Cray family. Um, yeah, so it was quite an era. The 50s it was the era of the West End. I mean, before that, was like the Billy and the Jack Spot era, but the Craze certainly took over that part of the West End and that, with the protection and the corruption they used to do. But of course, it all came to an end in the early '60s when they got sentences for the murders of what they committed. Um, is there much else we've
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned kind of rival gangs in the 50s.
Yeah, the rival gangs was the ones from Catford who they had rivals with was Charlie and Edward Richardson. They had a scrapyard there, but there was a rival gang, whether it was for protection or the corruption of whatever they wanted to do with them. That was a rival area. One of them did cross the line and go into Cray's area, and that's where he was shot by Ronnie Cray in the Blind Beggar pub at that time. So after a while, I think with the news of the war, as I said, the reporting there, he was captured at the time. Reggie, the brother, had also in the meantime committed a crime of killing another, I wouldn't say a rival, but uh, one of their colleagues. He stepped out of hand. Was called Jack the Hat Mavitti, who Reggie Cray murdered. So both brothers there had got sentenced to life imprisonment for murder. Um, their elder brother Charlie he just done minor crime areas and he got just small sentences compared to the twins. Um, Other than that, the Richardsons, as I say, have gone on. They committed a crime which was well big, and with the media, it was always printed from the news. World was what they called the crime, the trials of crime they done from their business, and they actually tortured, so people there for what they for want of their greed of the rival people or the people they tortured for their proceeds from crime. So they've done both got big sentences for that.
So what were okay? That's yeah. So with kind of all the gangs in London, what were they mainly trying to achieve? Were they trying to achieve power, influence, or kind of
It was
wealth?
their power was what yeah, showing their power over one another, but the actual thing was it was a crime. Yeah, they wanted to be the big bosses, so it was outdoing one another. Uh, it was mainly because of the corruption of the money they got from protection. They used to go around these clubs and threaten them, and it's going to be smashed up unless you pay us weekly or monthly, whatever. So that's how the crime was going on there. Before that, was like years ago in before the '50s, I would say was like West End was with prostitution with the Messina brothers, who were Greek, but that was the big thing. And then the Billy Hill and the Jack Spot era came along, and they was in the late '40s. So it's West End has been going on like that for years. With different gangs and different ways of how they run it. But it was certainly the '50s you're talking about is quite an era of the West End. What went on, the big changes and everything with it all. But quite a good era at the time, for people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you yourself find or get acquaintanced with these
Ours
um
was only we never sort of ordinary people wouldn't mix with them. It's only by chance that you might have used a place that belonged to them or that they protected, like a drinking club or something. I don't think they was much involved in the music era, but they certainly a lot of the starlets at the time thought they was good, or they thought the starlets made them. So quite a mixture of the media printing all these celebrities with the gangs. So this was in the printing and for the media, the papers used to print all this. Yes.
Okay, so I think another topic, I guess, I wanted to talk about was you mentioned kind of the Krays were arrested and sentenced for life, sentenced to life in prison in the 60s. So after they were sent to prison, did other gangs kind of fill their spot, or was there actually a decrease in gangs?
No, I think it really changed then. I think once the Richardsons and the Krays and the Frankie Frasers, who was another, a villainous man who virtually hurt a lot of people. Um, I think from there on, it just became the West End wasn't sort of controlled as such by a family of like the Krays or the Richardsons. It really altered. And I think from there on, it became individual gangs were coming up then with the big robberies. And this is what stopped, the crime wave sort of altered. It went from what but the detection to big robberies where they was doing like bank robberies, brink smack gold robberies. Courier services were being robbed, and it became big that way. With people, the crime of violence had ceased quite a bit. Though there was an individual someone hurt or murdered, but not like it was when the gangs were about. So even society had altered then, from it all. Once the 50 era went, the 60s came in, and as you know, everything really started. Changed life, and society changed. People wanted to better themselves, so the West End changed. For I think I can honestly say it became a bit more safer for the public to go around.
Okay, so um, actually going back maybe quickly to the 50s again, with these kind of these different crime syndicates, crime families, you talk about how there was kind of a lot of violence. So if you compare kind of if you talk about some other maybe gangs around the world, if you think about maybe the Yakuza in Japan, um, you've got some kind of crime which is actually doesn't involve the public at all. So I was wondering with this kind of crime in London in the West End, did they often involve the public and citizens and civilians, or did they usually keep their crime kind of private and under wraps?
The crime itself was uh, just on people who came across them, who done something wrong, whatever towards them. They would commit a crime or beat them up or whatever. They had henchmen or people who worked for them who would virtually kill for them or get rid of the actual bodies as well. So it was a thing that was really media was well aware of because it was publicised a lot, from the papers. Um, yeah, the actual. Yeah, I don't think they really went for the public themselves, the crimes. As I say, after them, the gangs then became big robberies more than actual bodily harm. They went for money, for gain. Um, and of course, Craig, once you get a life sentence, your life's finished. I mean, I think Ronnie Craig died first in prison, and then Reggie, he got a release late in life because he was really dying of cancer himself. So he didn't stay long after his release. He didn't live longer. Much after that, uh, his brother Charles had died. Eddie Richardson, the rival gang from Catford, he died last year at 91 years of age. Eddie Richardson. So it's an era where it's a time from the 50s to now is quite different. So yeah, it's just once the gangs of the Crays and the Richardsons finished, it sort of became the media. The big thing then was the big robberies. Although we've had quite a few crime things happen since then, like the Shepherd's Bush, 3 policemen being killed, by not by accident, but by chance, stopping people who were ready to do a crime, but one was mentally ill who shot 3 policemen. So you had that in between. The big robberies. The names then of the uh, gangs as such was all robberies, like the Roddy Knights in the Brinks, and his brother Johnny, Johnny Knight in the Brinks gold robberies. You've had all these big robberies going on then.
You just mentioned the Brinks kind of gold robberies, and
It wouldn't be nothing to do with the Crays or the Richardsons.
okay, I see.
Yeah,
But were kind of the people who kind of
they would know the people who was
right?
involved in these robberies at the time, but because it would be there around about their ages, would be about the same. Yeah.
Right. And these robberies happened mainly, or at least kind of the famous ones happened in the 80s, right? I believe.
Mm.
So were the people who took part in these robberies, were they kind of also involved with the kind of the gangs
They
of
would
the
know
50s?
the craze from past tense, but they've had their mishaps. They've over these robberies. There's quite a few of them have been murdered. In Spain, on what they call the Costa del Sol, things like that happened where someone's gone out there and killed one of them. The Great Train Robbery, that was a 60s thing. They all died. Most of them. So which was a big thing at the time. But the 50s are certainly an era of the Crays and the Richardsons. The murder of George Cornell in the Blind Beggar Pub by Ronnie Knight, by Ronnie Cray, I should say. Um, and the murder of Jack the Hatmavici by the other twin brother Reggie, which I think was instigated by Ronnie because he committed a crime of killing a man. Reggie had to do the same, So this is what you get from the public know all about this. They read it, and the News of the World, as I say, was one of the biggest papers on a Sunday that reported on all this crime. People read it religiously, and the crime reporting then was they was big crime reporters from the News of the World.
Okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I mean, I think that's all really interesting, and I think there's one last question I want to ask, which is something I ask in all of my interviews, and this is if you could describe your experience of the 50s in just one word, so kind of one descriptive word, what would that word be?
What would word be?
Yeah, if you could describe in one word the 50s.
Particularly one word from what the 50s era was like?
Yes.
I would say exciting.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes today's episode. I hope you've all enjoyed Mr. Digger's content and his story regarding the 50s, the 60s, and the gangs of London, and also a bit about the robberies, the famous bank robberies in the 80s. And as I said at the start of the video, I am now branching out a bit, kind of increasing the variety of my content on this channel, because definitely kind of with all my other videos that are currently posted, they focus a lot on the UK, of course, because I live in the UK, so that's kind of the most obvious starting point almost for my content. But I definitely plan on increasing my variety a bit, and I have a lot more content from around the world really lined up. So be sure to kind of keep checking back on the channel if you are interested in finding out what is going to happen next. But overall, yeah, thank you to all who continue watching after all this time and who kind of enjoy my content. It means a lot, and please do, yeah, stay in kind of stay informed on the channel. Keep checking back because I do have some interesting stuff lined up. Thank you.